Good morning, family. Good morning, church. Good morning. Good to see you all. Good morning, those who are online. It's really good to have you with us. We take it for granted that you join us every Sunday as we seek to hear what God would have to say to us today. As our brother Maurice mentioned, today we have, as a part of our talk on restoration and restoring, we have a friend. I call him Doc. He's Lawrence Nicholson, Dr. Lawrence Nicholson. And we just want to hear his story, what God has done in his life, and what we can learn from his journey, and just apply some principles as we observe what God has done in his life. And then we'll close with a word and prayer, right? So if you have any questions, at the end we'll take some questions, whether here or online. If you have any questions of Doc, you may ask. He's open, right? Just ask the questions, and we'll take them near to the end of our time together. Ready? Say yes? All right, cool. So, Doc, I want you to start with just where you are now. I know you hear talking about Doc. He here talking about his accomplishments and his degrees and stuff, but talk about where you are now, your accomplishments, what you're doing. Then you go to where you started off.
Well, thanks for having me, Jermaine. And I'm not a stranger here, right? And I must proceed what I'm saying that. Bless God, Yannick is yours, but I still own her. She's one of my favorite
no problem.
worship person.
See.
Where am I? Let's start with the fact that I am born again Christian, and I'm an elder at...
How long are you saved, Doc? How long are you saved?
Longer than you are alive. I've been saved since 1981.
1981. Right. Now alive about 76. That's why.
But yes, so I'm an elder at Bethany, and I'm booked. I would like to say I'm booked in this life, and the next it means that I'm married and I'm a Christian. But with regard to the question, I am a senior lecturer at the University of the West Indies in the Mono School of Business and Management in the area of management science or decision sciences. I am also the deputy chairman of the RGR Communications Group and the chairman of broadcasting. That's involved TVJ, JNN, all broadcasting, include all radio stations in the...
So you chair TVJ and all the broadcasting, right, and deputy chair today.
And including radio.
Right.
So therefore, it was chairman of TVJ, but they have collapsed, and now the broadcasting board.
Right.
So I'm chairman of that and deputy chairman of the broader group, which is the RGR Communications Group.
Right.
So that's where I am.
Right.
Right. But that's not who I am.
Right.
Right.
And your doctorate is in what?
I have a PhD in decision sciences with concentration in operations management.
That's not enough maths. Is maths?
It is mathematically based, but I'm not as mathematically adept as one of yours, as Richie.
Right.
Yes, so it is mathematically based. It's really maths applied to business and decision making, rather than straight maths.
Okay. All right. So thanks, Doc, for giving us an idea of where you are. Let's go back. Yeah. Because many times persons will look on us and think we're born where we are, that they don't appreciate our story or journey,
right,
and that God took us from highs and lows and nooks and crannies.
Right.
So let's talk about that. Give us an idea of your early childhood, where you were born, big house, mansion, rich life, easy life. Right.
So the big house is the mansion, right? Because I was born in Manchester. My mother died when I was 4.
Right.
I got to know my father when I was 19.
Wow.
And I've never been to a high school.
You have never been to high school?
I've been to secondary school, and when I left school, I had 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 levels of 6. That's to say I had none.
Right. Wow.
But the journey has been God designed.
Right.
Time we walk through the valley and we believe that this valley is not mine.
Right.
I try to tell people that without the wilderness, there couldn't have been a mountain.
Right. So hold on, don't miss this. So no high school, no CXC, no levels, but yet you are a doctor. All right, we get to that.
I also want to recognize that because the fact that I've not been to a traditional high school
Right.
does not mean that I have never been to school.
Right.
So I went to Greenfield Secondary, but those who are older than you are, maybe as old as I am, remember that secondary school, junior secondary school to secondary school, that the moment you attend those schools, the notion was that you go through school and you now leave and learn a trade.
A trade, right?
And then you were not one who was necessarily academically inclined.
Right.
Which is unfortunate, right? But during the school, because you know, we seem to be jumping over because
Yeah, okay, go back.
right, when my mother died at 4, I went to live with my sister in Clarendon. You're not hearing me? Oh dear. It doesn't mean that I do have to repeat what I said, right? But then, when my mother died when I was 4, I moved on to Clarendon to live with my sister. Then she took me into Kingston to live with my brother.
Okay.
So I actually lived in the inner city at some time.
Which one particular? Okay.
I lived at 14.5 Milk Lane, which is a community between Arne Garden and Tivoli.
Okay.
So I used to run around, and again, those of you might be too young to know all of that. You know, these little gutter with water. You used to cut out little board with diamond shape, and so on, and race, and so on and so forth.
Sure, I know
yeah.
that. I know that.
Right. But I can remember though when I moved to Kingston at about 8 plus 9, my brother tried to get me in St. Albans Primary, but I couldn't read.
You couldn't read at 9?
No, at age 9 I could not read. So I can remember that the principal asked me to read a book, and I did not know the word P-R-E-T-T-Y. I remember distinctly.
Wow.
And she was rooted in the spot in horror. How could the 9-year-old not be able to read? And the landlady, who actually was the one who took me, she was very, very disappointed. She kind of turned away, and as if I don't know this little boy.
Right.
But then
How do you feel in that moment, Doc?
Well, put this way, maybe my shame tree might not have been not yet germinated. So there was no scope for being ashamed, because it's a situation that you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And may I just pause to say that God uses that, because God doesn't bring you into a knowledge before you're ready for that knowledge.
Right.
And possibly if I was able to understand the gravity of that, it might have destroyed my psyche.
Okay.
But God protects the innocent and child,
Yeah.
and so on. Right, and then my brother enrolled me in a school they call Miss Gelly, I think, or in Arne Garden,
Okay.
and so on. But eventually, my brother, because when you live in inner city, living in a tenement yard with children, landladies and landlord are kind of iffy. But my brother's common law wife then became his wife eventually. She was from Hanover.
From where?
Hanover.
Hanover,
right.
Yes.
And so, as per normal, you go down for Christmas and holiday. And I went to Hanover, and her parents lived on a farm. And then when I reached there, I saw oceans, literally oceans of land.
Right.
You can run up and down without being constrained, because I can remember getting whipped because I ran from my house to around the corner, and my brother whipped me and said, "You don't know the danger of inner city." Hello?
Right.
But then I could run around anywhere.
In the country.
No, in the country. And then when I look around, I saw oceans of not only land, but fruit trees and so on.
Right.
Where I could pick without being intimidated and so on. And so therefore, the idea of picking up mango from the ground and eat was a no-no, because you have so much, and so on. So my point is that when they wanted to come back in Kingston, I cried, can remember, said I don't want to come back. But they weren't fazed by that, because it was part of their plan.
Right.
Because they had already packed my bag.
Right.
And they, being experienced, kind of suspected that I would not have wanted to come back.
Right.
And so I ended up there. And it was that. So I lived on a farm. And because...
Did you work on the farm? Did you
yes,
work on the farm?
yeah, we work on, as children. Jermaine, you are Tony, so you don't know the country business.
Not at all.
When you live in the country, you work as whatever ought to be done, but you do not see it necessarily what people now call child abuse. I don't think it was, by the way.
Right.
But you do what you need to do. And so you have your chores, you get up early morning, you go tie out the goat, you go tie out the cow, you bathe in the river, and you do that and be back to walk to school. I used to walk to Kendall All Age and then Riversdale All Age first, and then Kendall All Age, which was maybe about 5 miles to and 5 miles back. Mm-hmm. But then you enjoy it because you, and so on. And,
right.
Yeah. So that was my journey, but during that time, I start now to understand what it means to read.
Right. Right,
and so on. But when time came for common entrance, I didn't do common entrance because a combination of that I was not available to go to class because sometimes you have to work on the farm. When it's reaping time, you have to go. When it is putting stick to the yam, again, you might not know that. So I used to walk around and try to bamboo stick to jam in the ground to a yam and so on. So I keep on telling people that, listen, if you decide that I'm one of those, would I say, face the Jamaican. Yeah. So if they quote unquote fast with me too much, I can leave and I know how to farm.
You're good.
Yeah, I'm good. Right. And so through that, I ended up in a secondary school.
All right. Before I jump forward, Doc, you say mother died at age 4 and didn't know your father until age 19.
19. I got to know him.
So pretty much your brother and his now wife
along with her family because they had now moved back into Kingston.
Right.
So I lived with her parents.
Right.
Right.
Did you, growing up, because it's a big deal today, the idea of fatherless children and how that impacts you and how the damage that person may carry because of that. How was that for you? I know your brother was there, but did you miss your dad? How was that for you?
Well, you can't miss that which you don't know you have.
Right.
And I just didn't, a father wasn't there, so it just compute that I don't have a father.
Right.
But again, God has a sense of humor, and he provides persons. God doesn't live a vacuum.
Right.
And so the gentleman of the house that I grew up, he was a father figure. And then one of the peculiarities and wonderful blessings of country life is that every adult in the community is a parent beyond their immediate so on and so on. So I had other fathers and other mothers in the community.
Right.
And so I grew up, I believe, a happy child without necessarily have the little bling bling and so on, but that's fine. In fact, the concept of having Christmas gifts for me, those were foreign, very foreign, far removed.
Right.
But again, when Christmas you run around and you play and you enjoy yourself and so on. But no, so the short answer is no. I don't know that it has affected me in a negative way. The effect I would want to believe would be positive.
Explain that a bit.
Yeah, in the sense that I decided that if God would have blessed me to be a father, I would not be an absent father. So in that regard.
Right.
And not only that, but I would be a father beyond those God would have placed in my household.
Right.
For him to be father.
Right.
And so on. So the attitude, and sometimes it's not a deliberate thing, just that things happen.
Right.
And what I call the concomitant factors came together and shaped you.
Right. So even though your father was absent, someone God used that to strengthen how you father.
Yes, okay. Absolutely. Without deliberately, I guess say, okay, but at some point you will say, okay, I'm not going to be that.
Right.
Yes? Maybe you don't know what you want to be, but you know what you
don't
want
to be.
And sometimes that happens because sometimes we really don't want what we. I was speaking to a young man who I met at Wilmer's right here, and he's not sure what he wants to do, and I try to encourage him that don't worry about it. You just know, you ought to know what you don't want to be, And God, eventually, God will now lead you to what you ought to be, and so on. And so we just have to be patient, and so on. So, but yeah, so God has been good. But very early, I realized that there was something in me.
Right.
That was more than, if you please. And so at one point, I was able to go to school. Because my khaki pants was rubbed out and so on, because you had to wear to school and wear to other places. So eventually,
right.
And again, this is one of the the young people now wear clothes with torn out and patch and all of that.
Deliberately.
As deliberately as style.
Right.
I wore it because I had to.
Yes.
And being ashamed, really,
yes.
And so on. But my brother came from Kingston. By then, his common wife was now living in Westmoreland.
Yes.
And so I lived with her. And so, because I didn't have a khaki pants, he came down. She was a seamstress.
Okay.
And so she altered one of his pants.
Altered one of his pants.
Right. And asked the principal if I could now wear that pants with the khaki shirt to school. And so I was the boy in school with the only one with a different color pants, and so on. But again, God shielded me. I didn't feel any way. I was at school. I love school.
Yes.
I love school for various reasons. The fact that you're at school means that you don't have to do chores. The fact that you're at school means that you can run around with friends. You can play football and so on, and do what boys do.
Right.
And sometimes we constrain our children too much, I
right.
believe.
Right.
I should allow them children to be children.
Right.
And so I enjoyed. But at the time when I was able to go to school, though, Jermaine, as I said, I recognized that there was something. So I used to, from time to time, lay with my friends coming from school and get the homework and do it.
You do your friend's homework?
No. Because they and I would have been in the same class.
Right.
Because I was coming from grade 7, and by the time I reached grade 8, I didn't have what to wear, at least in the the entire first term. And during the other time, it was like in and out. Mm-hmm. But during that time, I would get the homework from time to time and do it for myself.
Right.
Just to make sure that, and so on.
Right.
So.
All right. So before we jump back on that, Doc, talk to me about you're saved. So I want to know how you met what happened when you met your heavenly father and your earthly father. Talk to us about the earthly father. What was that like when you met him? Yeah. And then talk to us what it was like when you got saved.
All right. I as I said, I got to know 19 and when I met him, it wasn't a case of, boy, where have you been? Right. I want to tell you the interesting way I met him was that I had two brothers, and I say I had because one passed early this year, actually. And he heard about me from way back.
Your father heard about you?
No. My brother. There are two brothers on his side.
Okay.
And he heard about me, and he searched for me, and found me in Lioneltown, Clarendon, where I live with my sister, and took me to know my father. And again, it was part of the process. So it wasn't any tears and so on. I'm glad I
did you have him up, or you had forgiven him?
No.
You had released
again, I was saying at church earlier today, speaking to Brother Williams, Calvin Williams was here a few weeks ago. And he was saying something about me and his wife and so on. I said, God bless us with different capacity. And one of the gifts, if you please, quote unquote gifts that God has not given me is the ability to harbor hate. I don't know what it's like. And again, there's no credit to me. So I don't want people to believe that the credit is mine.
Yes.
I have never been able to harbor hate. It doesn't mean that I'm a goody two shoes to the point where I don't dislike you and I don't dislike Pat and all of that. But it's not one that resides with me. I would say that tabernacle in my system. And so therefore, being married since for over 30 years, I got married in 1991. I can't remember, right? I can't remember being upset with my wife beyond 24 hours. I can't remember. because it makes me extremely uncomfortable. Yes? To harbor anything which you can now label it. And I said that to say that no, I didn't harbor any this stress, any hate or anything. I must admit though that I hated what he said because and I don't know that he said it to hurt me.
Right.
Because he was saying, oh boy, I don't have anything to give you, and so on. And the tone of it,
yes,
as communicated to me as I absorb it,
right,
was that
you look at something.
Yeah, you come to me, and so on and so forth. I told him, I said, I don't need anything from you.
Right.
I was in need, but I was glad I knew, and so on, because you need to know the stock from which you come. Mm-hmm. Yeah? And so that I disliked that. Right. Yeah? But I got over it quickly, and so on. He was a tailor, and so on, and held his own. But yeah, so know it. I Harbour know it. And so on.
All right, before you go on to talk to us about how you got saved, last week I remembered we spoke about the idea of releasing others, because release is a prerequisite for restoration. So if we harbor hate and unforgiveness in our lives, it hinders God's hand to restore us. Would you agree, and how do you respond to that?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And in fact, I'm glad you raised that, because there is the closest, I think, as I remember, that I came to harbor somebody in my system to the point where it might poison. And the thing about poison is that, is the thing about unforgiveness rather, is you're giving somebody poison to drink and expect, right? It
poisons you.
Yeah, it poisons you. You are the one who is dying, and so on and so forth.
Yes.
And the closest I came was when I was in, and I jump ahead, but I'll come back. I suspect, if you allow me, because when I was at when I left school, and I came back to Clarendon to live with my sister, and I worked at a furniture store. So my responsibility was to sweep out the furniture store. And when you would have come to buy a piece of furniture to know where you live, that when I deliver the furniture, you don't pay for it, I come back for it, and so on. And so I helped to lift the piece of furniture and so on and so forth. But I had time. That's to say that it was a long day. So I get up and go, and furniture store would open like 9, and then you leave work at 4, which was close to where I live. And recognize, so it was going to work, go through the day, after you go play football. Then I realized, I don't think this is what I want to do.
Right.
And so I started studying on my own.
Right.
So I borrowed books and studied. I didn't have any money to buy the books, but again, God in His providence. Again, the God that I serve has a sense of humor, and if we can't be humorous about who He is, then sometimes we lose out. Because in the tenement yard in which I lived, there was this girl who she went to Clarendon College. And she lived with her aunt, and her aunt would buy her every book. So all she had to do was just take the list, her book list, and take it to her aunt, and her aunt would buy all the books. But she never used to do any work.
See.
And I humorously say that she might have been experimenting with osmosis, surrounding herself with books, hoping that would seep in.
Right.
But what I did, I borrowed those books.
Right.
And studied.
Right.
I did accounts, maths, and English. I didn't get English initially. But I got enough that allowed me to get in teacher's college.
Back to the point about the hate before you go off.
Yeah. Sorry?
How you harboring hate? The closest you got to harboring hate, was that about your state of life?
No, that's what I'm saying. It's linked to this.
Okay.
It's linked to this, because if I had just told you, you would have been saying, I reached there.
Got you.
Right. Right. And then when I was in college, I'm in teacher's college, so I'm a trained teacher. I did primary education. And when I was in college, we had a class, which is now where I'm told. Yes. We had a class, and we're discussing our aspiration, what you aspire to be. And I said that I want to be a math teacher. I want to go to university and be a math teacher. And the lecturer, what we call tutor at the time, I can call his name because he's now dead, Mr. Lopez, he called by my last name. He said, Nicholson, you don't bother with that. You're not university material. Yeah? And so my point, I resented it.
Yes.
And my point, that was a moment that devil, if you please, without me knowing, might have invited me now to harbor hate.
Right.
But I didn't harbor that. Yeah. But I use it as a plank for motivation. Right. So my point is that I released him.
Yes.
Because if I didn't release that from my system, it might have induced some paralysis of the mind, paralysis of the heart, and so on. Right. So if I said that, you'd have said, "Oh, did I reach Jesus?"
Got you. Got you. And talk to us about you got saved. When, what age were you when you got saved?
I actually got saved before we go to Teachers College. So when I reached Teachers College, I was thrust into ministry in terms of at college. And this lady, sadly, she passed maybe about a month or so ago. That's Joy Gordon, Harvey Gordon's wife.
Yes.
The Thanksgiving service will be on December 9, and I'll be there to give some tribute. And she knew Mr. Edwards, Aston Edwards, because Lionel Town, which I got saved. And so she embraced me and decided that she's going to watch over me. Mm-hmm. Yeah? And so I got in Christian ministry. I became president of the UCCF, very green, and so on, but helped to guide me.
But what age were you, Doc, when you got saved? Yeah? But what age were you when you got saved?
21.
You're 21.
Right,
okay.
so therefore, people believe and so on, that I know I might look older than this, but I am 61. Thank you very much.
You're 61.
Right, I am 61 years old. Right?
Same.
Praise God. Right? But the point is that when I got there, so I tell people that I started everything late. So when I went to school when I was 21, and then when I left, in 25, I taught 2 years at Clarendon College, taught maths. And then after 2 years, I applied to University of West Indies, got to university when I was 27. And how I financed that at university, I don't know, but it was financed. And one of the things that you need to learn in life, Jermaine, I'm sure you will learn, knowing you a little bit, and young people need to know, it's not what you have that makes you happy, it's what we do with what you have.
Right.
Right.
Say it again.
It's not what you have that makes you happy. It's what we do with what you have.
Right.
Yeah. And my point is, when I reached university, I had a blast at university. I enjoyed every minute of it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did, I think, relatively well. After leaving university, I got married. I got married in July in 1991, and then 1990. My bad. And then in 1991, I applied for a scholarship. Last day, it was in the papers. I saw an ad that they needed persons to go overseas to study, to come back to university to teach, because I've always wanted to teach at that time and so on. I applied. I actually walked with the application. The last day it was due. Last day. Right, and got the scholarship, a USAID ID scholarship, and so so having got it was right. So the scholarship was supposed to now be either come into play by 1991 to 92, and then so I got married July, and I was supposed to have left the August for the scholarship. Yeah. Right. Well, my wife didn't find it funny, and God
left where? Where is scholarship? England, correct?
To the US. I did both masters and PhD at the University of Florida.
Okay.
And as God would have it, it was put off for the January. Mm-hmm. So I went to January, and I decided that, listen, I'm not enjoying being away from my wife. So between January, I worked overtime around the clock while having fun. Because again, I love sports. I play football. So I find time to have fun. But by the December, I was home for Christmas. Finished, done. Finished the masters.
Right.
And back home.
All right. Remember now, folks, if I have any questions, please indicate in the chat. Indicate. As we going to an end now, Doc. As you look back on your life, from a boy grew up on a farm in the city, can't read at 9, to where you are now, elder, chairman of so many boards, lecturer. What are some of the things that you think? What are some of the takeaways that you can share that God taught you that you think is relevant? That God took you from where you were to where you are now? What's maybe 3 things I think are important for us to take away?
There's so many things. Let me see if I can.
Give us 3.
That's fine.
Yeah.
1, God in His sovereignty.
Yes.
Allow you to start where He wants you to start.
So wherever.
Yeah. So wherever God allows you to start, that's where He wants for you to start.
Right.
If I had started at a place other than what I would have related, possibly I might have overcome with arrogance and believe that this is about me.
Yes.
Yes, so God allows you to start where He wants for you to start.
And sometimes we compare our starts and say God is unfair.
Yes. So right. So therefore we compare is like Asafa comparing his start with Usain Bolt or the other way around.
Yes.
Yeah. So God allows you to start where you start.
Yes.
Yeah. And don't complain about where another person start.
Yes.
Yeah. It means sorry. So that's a lesson for me. 2, God allows you to come into that which He pleases, is the blessings, at the time that He chooses. Yes?
So we don't decide. We don't say, okay, God, in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, so therefore, again, if God had allowed me to have accomplished earlier than I did, I might have been maybe compared to where Jesus said that you cast things before swine and so on. Right. I might not have known how to appropriate that or appreciate that. So God knew that I wouldn't have been able to accomplish and appropriate these blessings until the right time. So again, God allows you to start where you start, and God allows you to come into particular blessings at the time. Right?
So trust God's timing.
Yes, so God's timing is perfect, always perfect. Right. Yes? And sometimes people shy away from all. I like to say that I've done studies, extensive studies on the word all, and it means all.
All the time.
Yeah. So God's time always right. Yeah. Even when we don't embrace it, it's God.
Yes.
And so on. And of the third, and there are many lessons, but the third one is that God allows us to accomplish that which we have accomplished, not necessarily for us.
Good.
So what God has allowed me to accomplish, and by the way, well, you know me, I what I've accomplished, I don't walk around and so on and so forth, because many persons don't even know my story. Right. Don't even know that I'm chairman of this and chairman of that.
Right.
And some persons don't know that I have a doctorate. By virtue of what I do, they have to know. And so on. And so God allows you to accomplish that, not necessarily for you,
right,
but to enhance other person's life.
Right.
Because some persons need to be motivated.
Right.
And so God allows you now to be a motivator.
Right.
To now help those.
Right. And
if we do not understand this, then we become so self-absorbed that we believe that's about us. It's never. It might have been about us before we come into His kingdom, but the moment you step foot in God's kingdom, it's not about you. It's never about you the moment you step in His kingdom. Right. It's about God. Right. And so everything, and again, I don't want people to believe that I have some kind of halo over my head. Right. That I don't necessarily sometimes revert to the point where I believe it's about me. Yes. But I also understand it's not about me. And so when those times come, it's for me to step back and say, Lord, I need for you to take me back to first base. Right. To remind me. But it's never about you. It's always about God when you come into His kingdom. That's good. That's good. Any questions? There's a first call. What kind of, you said, so to recap, is that we don't understand that God, where we start, God decides that in sovereignty. Yes. And because He has a plan for our lives. Yes.
his blessings is ordered in his time, not ours.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
we can't put him on.
You can't rush it. You can't rush
Right. And whenever we achieve is not for us, is for others.
Yeah.
What mindset helped you in your journey, Doc? What mindset must we have or should we have? Even if you kind of said it in your 3 points, but what kind of mindset must a person have to understand it's really all about God and His work in our lives and not about us? What's a helpful mindset? If you get my question.
Well, let me answer the question this way, Jeremy, because by you saying what mindset, it just, sorry.
Oh, they need cardless to travel.
Yes, yes, okay. By you asking the question, the way you have asked it, which I know that's not what you meant, would presuppose that you determine on your own what mindset you ought to have.
Good.
Right? But the mindset that God allows you to have, or that you need to ask God to have, is this, that everything starts with God. Yeah?
Right.
And when everything starts with God, the mindset is that you eat what He serves. Right?
You eat what He serves.
Yes. And you go the journey that He charts out. Yeah?
Right.
And so whatever God places on the table, you eat.
Right.
Yeah? Because God's not going to poison you.
Right.
Yeah? And whatever journey He charts you now, then you walk in that journey because God's not going to ask you now to go over a precipice.
It's about trusting Him.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, right. So that's the kind of mindset you have. Yeah?
Right.
That God will work it out.
Yes.
Yeah? So have that kind of mindset. Again, I'm not suggesting that I always have that mindset.
Right.
But because I know that is the mindset that I need to have, when I reach the point where I seem to deviate from that mindset, then I step back and say, Lord,
Right.
take me back to the mindset that I need to have.
Thank
Right,
you.
and so.
Trusting. All right. We have a question online, I believe. No question online. Any question in house? Just raise your hand and we'll take a question in house. I have one more question before. All right. Doc, as you close, we have, and it's like a brata. We have many students here, many university students.
Yes.
And many potentially university students.
I think he's indicating.
Okay, just a moment, yeah.
Yes.
What advice would you give them as a lecturer? Put on a lecture hat now.
Yes, okay.
What advice would you give to them to do well during this time of life,
Yeah.
this university life or pre-university life?
Yeah. Well, one is that in order to do well, try to recognize that you do not want to become an adult and being forced to do that which you didn't want to do. Let me explain. I tell people that there's absolutely nothing wrong with someone cleaning the street,
Yes.
being a garbage collector, yes? Being a policeman, nothing is wrong with anything which is honest and so on.
Yes.
But I believe something is wrong when you are forced to do that which you didn't want to do.
Okay.
So if my daughter, who is 14 plus, said, Daddy, I want to be A or B, and I don't necessarily agree that I think her ability should allow her to do more than that. But if she abandons the idea of studying hard and doing what she needs to do, and then having been forced to do A or B when she might have changed her mind, I will be disappointed.
Right.
Yeah? So when you have and in that regard, you study hard.
Right.
You work hard, you read. Yes?
Read.
You read, even when you do not want to read. I remember I could not read at 9.
Yes.
Even when you do not want to read, you read. Because when the gray matter goes down, if it has nothing on which to anchor, you're going to come up empty.
See.
Yeah? So read, and so on. Listen. Listen to adults. Even if you believe that you're brighter than them, listen to them. because they have traveled the road before you did.
Right.
And they have made the mistakes, many of the mistakes for you.
Yes.
So they are saying, don't do that. Not because they are miserable. In fact, I say any parent here who's not miserable, don't love your child. Right? And I say to children, if your parent not miserable, or you can all of that, he or she doesn't like you. Yeah?
Same.
Every parent is miserable. Right? And so the adult, listen to adults, because they have walked the street. They have made the mistakes for you, and they are saying, I made it for you. Don't make these mistakes.
Right.
Yes? So you don't have to come and make your own mistake when those mistakes have already been made.
Gotcha.
And so on. So listen. And
one more.
And stick to it. And they'll be fine.
That's good. All right. All right. Thank you. Do I have a question? All right.
Yes.
Just have somebody there. There's somebody there. Just stand. Get the mic to you. And ask your question. Make sure the mic is on. It's on. Go ahead.
Good morning.
Morning.
Yes. Anyways, Doc.
Yes.
I would like to ask you, what is your advice to give some people at their breaking point, or some people who think that they can't do it, or some people who feel like they're lost and they.
Yeah, okay. All right.
you.
Okay. So you're at a break point, and somebody need to put their arm around her, right? So you're at a break point and you feel like you're lost. First of all, we need to recognize that everybody has at least one break point.
Yes.
So when you reach your break point, you must recognize that you're not alone.
Right.
You are not the first one to have come to your break point. Your break point is different from my break point.
Yes.
So don't compare your break point with mine. Yeah?
Yes.
When you are at your break point is at the time when you now need to step back and seek help. Don't fight through your break point alone.
Right.
Yeah? Let somebody know about your break point.
Yes.
Yes?
That's why community is so important. Having a community
yes,
and a church.
but be careful, and that's why you need a friend before you need, you get a friend before you need a friend. Yeah?
Yes.
And so therefore, it's not everybody with whom you share your break point. Yeah?
Right.
So have someone with whom you can share. So again, one, recognize that your break point for you is not the break point for others. Recognize that everybody has a break point, and get somebody with whom to share. All right? Don't fight through it alone.
Right.
Because God creates a community, and that community of people is to help, whether it be home. If you find that you can't do it at home, find somebody and help you to work through that break point. Because your break point is a moment, not a process. It's a moment. The moment might last for a year, but it will not last forever. Yeah? Okay.
Amen. Amen. Before we close, just one last question. Sister Ramsey here. Any other questions? Any question online? No question online? Sister Ramsey, stand.
It's not a question. I'm so blessed by your testimony and this interview. It reminds me of myself, some portions of it,
Right.
and how God can even change your accent. Because all along, I thought he was from one of the other islands. So bless you,
Yes.
brother.
You
Bless
talk
you.
nice, right? I know.
I have been told that many times.
Yes.
But I find, though, just comment on
Yes.
that I find that one of the things about Jamaica, which is uniquely seen to be ours, is that when, usually, not on all, when someone speaks the language, and I love the English language, and by the way, it doesn't mean that I can't speak Patois, right? I do dabble in the Patois, right? When it's appropriate. But one of the things in Jamaica, we believe that when you speak and you articulate a particular way, then it ought to be foreign. Yeah? And one of the things with me with regard to my students, I believe in the Ecclesiastes 3, there's a time for everything.
Right.
What we need to encourage our children to articulate. Because when you can articulate, when you can express yourself, people listen to you.
Yes.
Even if you're speaking undiluted rubbish, people listen.
It sounds good.
Because it sounds good.
Right.
Yeah? And may I just share something, because I can remember
in closing.
this. Yes, I can remember this gentleman was shared that he used to campaign with Michael Manley, those who are old would know. And Michael Manley went someplace in Westmoreland, and he went and spoke at a rally, and the next day, next night, and so on. I understand Michael Manley used to send out people to the bars and so on, just to get a feel of how he did. And this man walked in, so he walked in just and all of that. And another man walked in and said, boy, I went to listen to Michael Manley last night. And, they're drinking rum, I understand. And somebody said, what did he say? He said, I don't know. But what he say is sweetie, 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 sweet. Right? So it's not what you say, it's not what you do sometimes, it's how you do it. And that's important. That's another lesson.
Right.
Sometimes it's not what you do, it's how you do it. Right? You can correct a child, you can scold a child.
Right.
But it's not the fact that you scold the child, it's how you do it.
Right.
You come across as if you were never a child. Yes? Right. And you never made any mistake. Right. And so we say to our young people, boy, you in this generation and so on. Yeah? So it's not, you need to say that, but it's how you say it. You can't be saying as if you have never been there. Right. And so on. It's important.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you, Doc. We appreciate it.
I'm sure that you would not want to ignore your wife, as you might not be able to go
let me tell you. All right. She's my wife. All right. I want dinner later. Go ahead, Mrs. Williams, to the question.
Okay. A question from a viewer online says, just to be clear, Doc, are you saying if we are forced to do something we don't want to do, that is wrong?
No. Thanks for the question.
Wait. The question finished?
Is that career-wise or life in general?
Yeah,
okay,
good. And thanks for the question, because less people would have walked away with the wrong impression. What I mean is this. You end up working in a particular area, making a living, but you're forced to do that. Right. What you really want to do possibly is to teach, because you have the gift of teaching, but you are not prepared to teach. Right. And so you know who suffers? The person who is doing the job and the person who is being served by that. And so the customer service person who really doesn't want to be there, you get his wrath, her wrath. Yeah? You don't want to be there. Right. And so therefore, it affects not only the person's life, but affects the lives of those that you touch, because you don't want to do this thing. Yeah? And so I believe, for me, I do not believe I could have done any other thing professional-wise, career-wise, other than teach and lecture, because I just believe that's me. Right here I'm teaching people, but I'm sorry. Just apologize and so on. Right. But that's me. Right. I love to do this. And any day that I lose this passion is the day that I said, well, it's time for me to go, and so on. Right.
All right, thank you, Doc. Please show appreciation to Dr. Lawrence Nicholson. So good to have you. I know, thank you, sir. I know time is up. We asked the worship team just to sing one song, and then we close in a reading of Psalm 145. All right, so worship team, and we'll close in reading of Psalm 145. Thank you, Doc.